All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Penny Anderson, and I'm the Operations and Outreach Specialist for the Autism Alliance. I'm joined here today with Allison Daigle, Pam McKillop, and Katie Cassavant. We're all members of the Autism Alliance. And well, first of all, we'd like to thank you all for coming today, joining this meeting. We hope it's informative to you. And we would also love to welcome you to meet Bob Savin, the owner of Fitness Together in Ashland. And we welcome you to this issue of our Parent Speaker Series. And today, Bob's going to discuss his experience working with teens with autism, the impact their sessions have had on both the teens and their parents. It's more than just physical fitness, it's about mental fitness as well. Bob prides himself on really getting to know his clients so he can create a custom workout program that works for them. Fitness Together offers private suites, each with individual music and lighting control, where Bob or one of his staff members will work with the individual. And Bob's here today to explain his methods, his program, and the results he's seen. And this is all happening within a safe, sensory-friendly space. And I'd like to highlight that Bob's Fitness Together is a certified autism welcoming business. And this program today is scheduled from 12 to 1. We do have another session this evening. If you want to recommend it to anyone who wasn't able to attend today, we have another session tonight at 6:30. And with that being said, I hope you enjoy the afternoon session. And I now turn it over to Bob.
Thanks very much, Penny. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for having me today. I love speaking in front of groups. I'm not always at my best on camera, so this is always a weird thing for me. I love getting up and moving around. So if I'm jogging everybody's screen here, I'll try to do my best to stay still. But I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to introduce myself a little bit more, give you some of my background, how I got involved with this program in general, how I got involved with fitness, and because it sort of tells a story about how we treat our clients. And why we do the things that we do. For me, I've been involved in the fitness industry now for 28 years. Way back in the day, I was a hockey player, played very, very competitive hockey. But what you can't tell from me sitting down is that I'm 5'7" and played defense, which means that there's not a whole lot of room for a lot of professional hockey players at that height, but certainly not a lot of room for those that have had 2 knee surgeries before the age of 15 as well. So having experienced that, going through the rehab process, spending a lot of time in different rehabilitation facilities to try to get better and to be able to play, started to learn that, well, I probably wasn't going to make it as a pro athlete, but I did really like the process of helping people get better. And so I started down this road of working at a physical therapy clinic, going to school for physical therapy, and ultimately, when I graduated Boston University, I started to realize that physical therapy wasn't really for me because I didn't want to just always work with a population of people who were injured. So I got more into this idea of movement science, and my degree is in clinical exercise physiology. And when I graduated, I started working in different healthcare facilities, different gyms, wellness programs, things like that. And we started to see sort of this kind of pattern of people who would come in and didn't really know what they were doing, when they got to the gym. There were other gyms that I had worked out in myself where people were a little bit more experienced. But for me, I took pride in really helping people develop a program that worked for them. So when I went on to own my own business here at Fitness Together, I've been in business now for 20 years. We struggled for a real long time trying to figure out what the message was and what made us so different than any other gym, any other facility. And certainly the private training suites that Penny mentioned, that was a big part of it for us and a unique selling point. But what really we started to hone in on was this idea of what I call bridging the gap between rehab and performance. And it's not to say that everybody out there has someone who needs rehab, but it was really the message of, we can't all just go to the gym. And in the case of this program, right, we can't just send the children off to the gym. In a lot of cases, they're not old enough to even have a membership. But there's so many other factors which we'll talk about, that are also sort of obstacles to being successful at the gym. For us, it was just simply taking people that, for whatever reason, couldn't do it on their own. They didn't have that performance level yet. They weren't self-sufficient at the gym. So we needed to bridge that gap between where they had been, whether it was some type of therapy program, and doing it on their own. So that's sort of what got us here. And we started to look at different populations of people that maybe needed a little bit more help. And so we've worked with a lot of stroke survivors. Obviously this program, with the children with autism has been a tremendous boost for us, because it allowed us to do the things that we were really looking to do to help people that couldn't do it on their own. So that said, when we started to dive a little bit deeper into, well, who really needs us and why? And a lot of the things that I'll share now aren't really things that probably come as a surprise to you, but they were just interesting statistics to us as we started to go through this. And some of the numbers that I started to come across was things like that 31, almost 32% of adolescents with autism are obese. And so most of the parents that I've spoken to, that was sort of the main thing that they came to me with when I said, well, what's the goal? What's the, what would you like to accomplish from an exercise program for your child? And that was the thing that kind of came up again and again, was that they were gaining a lot of weight, that they had gastrointestinal disorders, right? And certainly exercise can help with both of those things. So, we started looking at, just other numbers as well, or other things that were in the industry, or just through the research that told us that we could have success with this program. And some of the success markers were things like decreases in repetitive behaviors. There was academic improvement. And these are things that, of course, we saw as we started working with people. But as a background, like I said, having that information up front was helpful. Excuse me. Well, there's a good start. 5 minutes in, the speaker loses his voice. Good. Wow, see, look at that. No voice already. All right, we'll try to carry on here. It'll come back. It'll make for a good recording later. So anyway, other things that we started to see was that, and working with the children that we worked with, was there was improvement in communication. Certainly as the children came in and got more comfortable with our program, with our facility, we started to notice that they'd communicate more, they'd talk more to us, they'd share more information about how they were feeling. So obviously some of the known characteristics that we would pay attention to when people came in was, what are their social skills? What are their communication skills like? Any behavioral concerns that we had, sensory issues, cognitive issues, motor skills. And those are all things that we would talk to parents about and observe in an initial consultation to learn how to best work with people coming in. So first and foremost, when we develop a program, when on the first appointment, so I'll sort of just walk people through what our program kind of looks like. When someone first comes in, my take or my approach to all this is to let people explore the environment. Right. Again, we're a small facility in that we have 2 private training suites. Each room, as Penny alluded to, has its own set of equipment, its own music source, its own light source. We have access to the outdoors. There's doors where we can open them, get fresh air, fresh lighting, so we can really control the environment there. But when people come in for the first time, I say just explore. Let's see where this goes. Let's see if there's certain things that grab someone's attention that they're drawn to. And when we just had the last client that we brought in, well, I'll just use some names. His name was Jack. And when Jack came in, he seemed really drawn to the ropes that we had on the ground, and he wanted to pick them up and he wanted to know what they did. So, I explained it to him, and he picked them up and put them right down and didn't really do much with them. So I picked them up and I showed him what they did. And then he was a little bit more interested to pick them up and play with them. but that quickly transitioned to wanting to look at something else. So we put them down, moved on to the next thing. But all in all, what we did was just say, you know what, there's not a plan for today. Let's just see where we are. Right. And so, what I do is when they're walking around, when they're looking at the equipment, I'm making notes. And, I always tell parents that the first thing that exercise is movement. And as I said, my background is in sort of movement science and trying to help people move better. I think we all can agree that, just in our own exercise lives or in our own daily lives, if we tend to move better, with less pain, we'll move more often. So, and, for those that have gained weight in their lives, that's the biggest obstacle sometimes to moving well and moving often, right? Is that if you're overweight, if you're uncomfortable, if your clothes don't fit quite well, those are all reasons not to want to move. And whereas your children might not be telling us that information, we can gather that just from what I know from anybody else that I've worked with. And I think that's the most important thing to me, is that when we started and we first went through the program with advocates and the Autism Alliance, I think that was sort of a kind of an amazing thing for us, where we had been doing some things and we had worked with some children in the past. And when we started to learn about some of the ways that we can better work with people, a lot of those things were things that we were doing. And it wasn't because we had some course or we had some prior knowledge of this. It was just simply that that's how we would treat everybody. Is that when someone comes into the facility, it was just simply, well, tell me what you like and show me what you're interested in, or tell me what you've done before. And let's start to create a program. Oh, the music's too loud. You don't like country music? Let's change it. So we would do that anyway. And it just made sense to me to, of course, do that for adolescents with autism, is just say, well, they're no different. Maybe they can't communicate it as well sometimes, but we can just make people feel comfortable and learn from how they learn to do those things. So that's where a lot of that started. We understand that obviously in most places, aside from just the physical being able to sign up and go to the facility, that there are all kinds of challenges, whether they be fans or TVs or crowds, bright lights, and none of that exists here, because in our facility, as I said, the 2 rooms, each room is its own individual space, and it's just the client and the trainer in that space at that time. So we don't have a lot of people coming and going. The next appointment might be showing up at the tail end of a session, but that's about, that's as many people as there are in the facility. How do we put the program together? So once we get started, as we're going through workouts, as I said, the first goal is to just see how people move and to get them moving. And there's different ways that we can do that. One of the things that we look at is prompting, right? And proper types of prompting. Sometimes it depends on, again, the individual. In some cases, it's hand over hand, right? Teaching them and guiding them through a movement. Sometimes it's then moves on to a partial prompt, or ultimately, hopefully, none at all, where we can just describe what we're trying to do and they do the activity. But we walk through those stages. There are other things that we've done with, and Penny, we talked about this, and I don't remember if it was in the profile at all, but we had done a lot of things with video work, where prior to a session, especially if we were trying to change an exercise. I know that structure and routine is very important. So as often as possible, we would stick to that. But of course, on occasion, we do need to change some things, or we're trying to get better at something. So we need to look at how we're moving or change the exercise. And that was always a bit of a struggle for some of our clients when we tried to change a program. So what we learned was that, it was best to sometimes send a video along and say, okay, Jack, today we're going to, and just put something on YouTube so they can watch it ahead of time and say, Jack, these are the 5 exercises that we're going to do today. And then sometimes if it was permissible, we would even video him doing the exercises so that we could send that back to him to reinforce the next time that he came in, that he'd see himself doing those exercises, and that would develop some of the structure and repetition there. Let's see. Other things that we had done to encourage the workout was we used some, of course, the visual support, but the first then boards. We talked a lot about using those. First, we're going to do this, and then we're going to move on to this other thing. And along with that sort of came this reinforcement or these games. And this is one of my favorite stories because it happened by accident. And like I said, we all learn things sometimes. We had an event here at the studio, just a barbecue in the middle of the summer, and we put out some yard games. We put out one of those giant Connect 4 boards, and we put out some cornhole boards. And I don't think I got them quite put away when these boys came in for their workout. There were two brothers that were coming in together, and they came in, and of course the first thing they saw was the Connect 4 board, and they wanted to know all about it. And they were very distracted by it, and we needed to get to the workout. But the light bulb came on in my head, and I said, let's do this. Let me see some squats, and then we'll put a chip in the Connect 4 board. And those were the best squats that I ever got. I mean, they did them in a hurry. They did them, but they corrected them if I told them they had to do them correctly before they put the chip in. But that's what we did. We did a set of an exercise. We put a chip in the board. We did the next set. We got another chip. The one thing I learned by accident, though, too, is sometimes you have to be careful because they were also very competitive, and one of them did not like losing to the other. So that was a little bit. We had to fix that a little bit and find other ways around some things. But that was something that we learned. And the same with the cornhole. So we just kept then coming up with different games or different other activities that they really liked, so that we could do this first, then we got to do the other thing. Or if they wanted water and I knew they really didn't need another drink of water, we would always say, okay, let's do this set of whatever, then we can have a drink after that. And then sometimes we just lay out 3 or 4 things in a row, and I'd write them on, we have a chalkboard, we'd write them on the chalkboard, say, we're going to do, this exercise, this exercise, this exercise, you're going to have a drink, and then we're going to do the treadmill, right? Whatever it was. And we kept building on those things that way. For other clients that came in, we used kind of start and finish boards. So same idea, right? Where we would just move that activity into a finished column. Let me take a break and see if anybody has any questions, because I'm choking again. If anybody wants to shout out a question while I'm getting a drink. Not yet. How are you going to make me? Everybody's going to make me suffer. Go ahead, Penny. You have something?
Bob, do you have any age? What's the minimum age that you'll have in your gym?
Typically 12 or so. That's always sort of a complicated thing. I mean, here's my approach with, again, children, right? And this is, I guess, a little bit more difficult, right? Because we don't know how much they really want to be here in general. But my take, and I'll use this example. When Jack started, he was 13, right? He really didn't want to be here. I think most days he came in, he said he didn't want to be here. But once we got moving, he was okay. All right. I always have problems with people who really, like, if we're not making progress, if we're not, if we're fighting for too long, I knew we could win that over. And I saw that on the first visit. I knew that there was enough interest that we just had to win that over. I have kids in the past, nothing to do with autism or anything like that, but just parents who dropped their kids off, didn't take an interest themselves, and we were babysitting for an hour. And I knew it, and the kid didn't want to be here, and there was no getting around that. And that's always tough. So I would take a 9-year-old if they were, wanting to be here and raring to go. So that's more the thing is the fit, right? So I'm not adverse to training anybody as long as, we're progressing towards something and it's not just somewhere else to be. I have other kids who, again, they play every sport under the sun. They're, all day long. They go from this to this to this. And then at 6 o'clock at night, the parents are bringing them here for a workout when they haven't eaten since like 9 a.m. They've been to 4 other sports for the day. And it was just one more activity to fill the day. those are 16-year-olds, and I don't want them here at that point. So yeah, we're open to anything, but again, it's finding the right fit. Let's see, what else did I have here? Other things. There were some other really kind of interesting things we talk about sort of testing and exercise assessments and things like that. So of course, we have to have some things that we measure by. And once we get past that idea of, that they're doing an exercise, that we've got a program in place, we want to be able to monitor what the progression is. So there's a lot of different ways we can do that. Certainly we can measure how much strength they're gaining by how much they're lifting. But of course, again, depending on the individual, we have heart rate monitors, whether they could be worn on, and in a lot of cases, they can be worn right on the wrist. So we can track heart rate and see what their heart rate's doing over time. We can test body composition in a lot of different ways. Most often with this population, it's holding on to some type of monitor that then will scan that for us. It's not as accurate as other methods, but it gives us a number and something we can judge by. We have we can measure cardiovascular fitness by using the treadmill. Most of our kids have really enjoyed being on the treadmill. Our treadmills have heart rate monitors built into them. So simply just by holding on to the handrails, we can get a heart rate out of them, and we'll know if their cardiorespiratory fitness is improving as we do that. We can measure flexibility and mobility, just simply by having them move through different patterns, and not even have to put a scale to it, but we can assess some things just based on things they can reach and touch and grab. And then other assessments are even just sort of self-assessments. We've worked with kids where we've talked about body image and just being able to identify different body parts. And I found some kids are really interested in knowing, well, it's not just my leg or my thigh, but they have some understanding of what quadriceps are. So we've talked about those things. Some of the kids have really amazed me with their knowledge of the human body. And so we get into discussions about that. I've gotten a whole history lesson on some other topics, which has been a lot of fun. We talked about this prior to the meeting today. I've gotten a whole lesson on Star Wars. And, I saw some of the early ones. I'm not old, but some of the newer stuff, not as well versed. And the reason why it came up was because over and over and over again, I was told that Jack did not like my music selection. So I said, well, what do you like? And I knew he liked Star Wars. And somehow or another, I knew that there was I could find a soundtrack for Star Wars. And so we put on Star Wars. Now, same problem, right? I put it on, and that was a different type of distraction because then I got the history of Star Wars, and we had to get back to okay, we'll play the next Star Wars song when you do this exercise. But again, it just kept feeding that interaction, and that was the best part, was that the more things that I started to learn, or the more things that held an interest, the more conversation I got, the more things I learned about him. And it wasn't just Jack. I use him as a great example, but I just kept learning more things. And one day, the two boys that were in shocked me because I put on a music station that I thought there's no way they're going to like this one. And next thing I know, they were dancing and singing, and they knew all the lyrics and I didn't. And I couldn't believe that they were running around the room singing the song that they were. So those are just things. But along with that, we can evaluate motor coordination and all those other features as well. And it goes back to what I said earlier about movement is medicine in and of itself. So that's the bulk of what I have. I know we have an hour, but I can just spout off on a million other things, but I was hoping that people would have some questions to throw at me, maybe specifically about the workouts that we've done, or I don't think I need to teach everybody sort of the rationale behind everything, but if you have a question about it, I'm happy to answer.
Bob, I was wondering, typically when somebody comes in, Like, do they come in one time a week, 2 times a week, and how long sessions are and how that all works?
Yeah, so sessions are 45 minutes with us here. And we do have, again, cardiovascular equipment in the front of our facility that's a little, sometimes we'll include that with our time. But if someone really enjoys, and again, this gets into whether or not they're competent and capable to do some of that stuff on their own. But there have been times when we've had children in that maybe we started with them on some of that equipment or made it part of the 45 minutes. And then as we progressed and they were really confident and comfortable up there on their own, we would do our workout together in the weight room and then say, you know what, if you want to do more exercise on the treadmill today, he'd say to me, oh, I want to do 15 minutes. And he didn't need me standing next to him for 15 minutes on the treadmill. I said, well, let's do that at the end. And you don't need me there for that. We'll turn the TV on, or, you can play your video, and he would just go and do that at the end. So he could stay as long as he wants afterwards. I'm hands-on with somebody, for 45 minutes. And there was another question, how often? Most of the kids will come in probably twice a week. That doesn't always work for everybody. I get it. There's probably a million other things on people's schedules. Again, the more frequently somebody exercises, the better. But we have to make sure that it fits with their schedule and what they want to do. I saw a question, but then I just lost it.
That's okay. It's glad to learn about your training program. What is the fee structure? Do you only work out of Ashland, or do you cooperate with other local studios?
So yeah,
about Natick.
Yeah, so Fitness Together is part of a franchise. They're all individually owned and operated. At the time, these are just, I don't know what other studios are doing because they're all individually owned and operated. So it's my two studios here in Southborough and Ashland. I'm in Ashland today. Those are the two studios that I know, we've put our program in place. So I can't answer for the other studios for sure. Fee structure, we will sell as little as one session. But we do have packages, programs, things like that. We're not a gym. We're not selling monthly memberships. So what we do is we simply sell a package or a number of sessions that's comfortable for an individual, and then we can always tack on more. But I would say in general, our fees will range anywhere from say $65 to $80 per session, depending on the volume of sessions purchased. One thing I can't answer to, which I'm sure that maybe Pam, Penny, any of you can probably get a lot more into, is I know that there are programs that are potentially available to assist with some of the fee structure. They don't come through me. One of the things, certainly with the IEP programs, I know, physical education has to be a big part of that, whether or not, again, that works into what I do and what qualifies. That's something I can't answer to.
Bob, if my child, if I was concerned with, the physical aspect, like could my child, do the weights, with that, would you offer would you say, okay, let's do an evaluation? Mm-hmm. Would you say, because I would imagine, different physical capabilities, not only necessarily a consultation, but offering, I mean, do you have more than free weights? Do you have, you mentioned ropes? Do you have other?
Yeah, we've got a lot of different things and toys and that we sort of use and play with. So of course we have the weights, but we have bands. Most people are familiar with the latex bands. We have sandbags, and these are all kind of interesting things as well from a sensory standpoint as well. Right. I don't think I have one kind of close enough to grab right now, but we have this really cool sandbag, and it's just a pouch, and so it feels sort of like a beanbag. And they weigh anywhere from, we have a 10 pounder, a 15 pounder. So we have different things like that. Sandbags that look like duffel bags that have handles. And that's shifting weight as well. So that's not, a static weight like a dumbbell would be. So, I mean, our dumbbells go as little as 3 pounds. We've got anywhere from 3 to 100-pound dumbbells. We've got cable machines, or a cable machine. So again, we're not a gym with, if most people go into a gym, they see, kind of row after row of all these different machines. We have one cable machine. Most of our weight or most of our exercise is free weight based, or what I would call functional training based, where we pick things up. Think about your daily movement or activities of daily movement, where we're picking things up, reaching for things, grabbing things, holding things, carrying things. So it really teaches a lot of life skills as well, how to pick something up and have to carry a suitcase, or have to pick something up, put it on your shoulder and walk with it. So all of those things, and we can do that at any different weight. But again, sometimes it just starts with movement. And we do this with our adult population as well, is that if movement is poor, I always say, like, you can build strength on poor movement, but it's really what you end up doing is getting stronger, but sort of just hitting save on a bad document. And ultimately that movement will fail you if you don't learn how to do it correctly. The biggest thing, and this was sort of just reminded me of, is, again, with all of our populations, we sort of look at behavioral or evolution, right? Children often, right, they learn how to roll over, they learn how to then pick their head up and plant their arms on the ground, they learn how to crawl, right? They start to teeter as they get into a squat stance to then stand up and walk. And when they walk, when they crawl, we should have opposite arm and leg patterning movement. Well, that doesn't work for everybody, and people don't all progress or grow the same way. And so some of those features get lost. Or when we've had injuries, oftentimes as adults, we lose the ability to do some of those things. I have adults that don't know how to crawl, right? Or when we ask them to walk back and forth across the room and lift their legs a little higher, as if they're like slow motion running, they can't figure out that opposite arm length pattern. So for a lot of people, and certainly, when we've worked with some of these children, we've had to just say, let's just start on the ground and let's just learn how to move our limbs in an opposite pattern. Maybe we can even do it on our back. And again, we can make games of all this stuff. We lay on our back and we call it dead bug. And it just looks like a, like a bug trying to, or a turtle trying to get its legs, and flip over. But that's teaching that opposite arm leg pattern. And we can introduce the bands, the weights, the other equipment into that as we develop.
And again, this is all kind of done in one suite, right? So you have that privacy, which is comforting, I think, to people that, aren't familiar with the gym or have certain, anxieties about going to the gym. Or
right. And you get back into like, sound and things like that, right? When you've got big weights or you've got machines, and I've seen this, right? When someone doesn't have control of a machine and they let go of that weight, well, that's a big, loud sound. Right, those weights smacking together on the machine are loud. In fact, just even with our machine here, there were times when, if I was moving the arms of the machine to set it in a different position, Jack would tell me, "Hey, do you have to snap that so loud?" Right, because I'd pull the pin, right, and then let it go, and the spring of that pin would make a sound. So again, but like I said, he told me, which was really cool. All right. So I was able to learn, yep, that's a problem. We gotta be mindful of that. And so, but that was the nice thing. But you get that in a gym where everybody's smacking weights around, and that could start to become an issue for someone.
Yeah, Bob, I had a question.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, Katie, go ahead.
I had a question about if somebody's child normally is in like has a one-to-one and can't communicate using their verbal language, is there how do you sort of work that out? Is there a space like the parent can stay? Can they come with a caregiver? Do you guys have someone on staff? Or
yeah, absolutely. And it's encouraged. We have, so our rooms, you can sort of see both rooms from a center area that we have. We have 2 couches there. We have guest Wi-Fi, we have coffee, we have water, we get snacks. So, we definitely have a very comfortable environment. And that's what this one parent would do all the time. She'd come in and sit down. And when it started out, she would sit on those couches the whole time. And, she'd have to, she'd be the support system. So whenever there was a break, he would come out to get water from her. And then over time, he just started bringing his own water bottle in, and she'd stay out in the car. And I would, again, always encourage any parent with any children we work with, to be involved and to stay as long as and as often as they can. Once there's a comfort level there and everybody's happy with how things are going, then do, you know, and that was the other nice thing for the parents, was that once there was that kind of bond and trust and comfort level with everybody involved, the parents got some free time. You know, and I know for a lot of you, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is to be able to, you know, for an hour. And I said, you know, we're not babysitters, and nor do we want to be that. But just that ability to go run up to the grocery store and get some items, or, you know, and know that your child is safe here. You know, we can provide that environment when the situation's right. So there was another question I think I saw in chat.
Yep. From Mary Ellen, it says, is there a maximum age? And can I come by for a visit so my son could see the facility?
Absolutely. So the best thing to do, you know, is to, you can call me. We'll put the information up, and we can schedule time. That's the easiest, because we are, you know, booked with sessions, but we can always find time to have someone come in, visit the facility, meet me, meet our team, you know, whoever's available. But yeah, we always do complimentary consultations. I'm happy to have people come out. It just, you know, we need an appointment to do it. That's the easiest way.
I would say no maximum age.
Yeah, maximum age, no, there's no maximum age. You know, again, I mean, I've got, you know, the oldest client, and this has nothing to do with the autism program, but I had a client who was 98 years old, and he came in because he wanted to get back to downhill skiing. Right. He told me, you know, he'd been a client in his 80s, and then, you know, he came back, but he had told me that he wanted to go skiing. And I just assumed that he meant, like, you know, nice cross country skiing out in the backyard or something. And he said, no, I'm going downhill this year. And I said, okay. So yeah, we and this is what I said about that population, right? It comes back to where we started, in that, you know, we've got these populations of people that that needed a little bit more assistance. And you know, just caring for people. And, you know, this sort of evolved into a bigger thing, because, you know, it's a topic that we started calling adaptive fitness. And you know, and the term's out there, you know, I didn't dream this thing up, but, you know, adaptive fitness certainly works in this area. But when I look at, you know, just the other things that I've gotten involved with, whether it be the stroke survivors, the elderly, pregnancy, I work with veterans, so we have people that you know, have lost their limbs, and all of those things require some level of adaptation to allow people to do the exercise, to feel comfortable, to be welcome, to live their lives to the extent that they would like to. And so that's just what our program's about.
Got a big thumbs up from Mary Ellen.
Thank you very much.
Any
Yeah, I
other
think-
questions? Oh, go ahead, Penny.
No, it wasn't really a question. I was just gonna comment that, you know, I think we all have read this, you know, the research that how valuable moving your body is, both from a physical standpoint to a mental standpoint. You know, sleep is better. You know, getting all that energy out of your body, it's just so helpful. And it is, you know, if you have limitations, it's okay. The gym's intimidating to anybody most of the time. So imagine somebody who, you know, has insecurities or a limited mobility or anything like that. So what I love about Bob's business is it's individualized. It's you know, walking you through and taking that anxiety or that uncertainty away, for both the, you know, in the case of a parent or caregiver and the individual. So I think this program is wonderful.
Yeah, there were so many things that I've come across, and yeah, that's just it, Penny. We can talk a lot about, you know, all the studies that have been done and all the research out there. There were so many other things I came across. There was another parent survey I came across that listed all the different types of therapies, whether it be you know, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and sort of I apparently the #1 rated treatment overall. It scored like a 4.5 out of 5. Was exercise. You know, they found that the most effective treatment, if you will, for their children was exercise. And while the other things are all valuable, just in terms of the parent opinion, The closest one, it was 4.2 out of 5, and the second highest was only like a 3.5 out of 700 families, surveyed. So it was people just really started to see the value of the exercise program. I will say, just because I didn't mention it before, that this in no way, shape, or form takes the place of any physical therapy or occupational therapy. So what they do is quite different in some regards than what I do. Sometimes it overlaps, but I sort of get myself into this problem when I talk about sort of my background and experiences as going to school for physical therapy. I am not a licensed physical therapist, and so what we do is a little bit different. And for that same reason, sometimes the question comes up about insurance. And there are some programs that will give reimbursements for exercise, and this gets into some of the other stuff I mentioned about programs available. But we do not take any insurance. We're not licensed to do so.
Yeah, I see Kathleen says, this sounds like a great opportunity. I'll reach out offline. Thanks so much.
Yeah, has anybody, I'll ask the question, has anybody come across any, or maybe the question is, I think so in some of the conversation I've had with some parents, is that apparently there are some other places where children can get together more so in groups for exercise. Does that seem to be more the common kind of practice where like, how are children getting exercise now?
Yeah, I can answer that. There's a few programs that specialize in this area, and they do start off a lot of times with the individual, very similar to everything you described, and then maybe for maybe affordability, or just as they progress in their goals, they can introduce that peer, right, and they can do some of those small groups that can progress. So
and that would be a great sort of goal to set, right? And so that's what I tell people, even in general here, is like, look, personal training isn't for everyone forever, for a variety of reasons, of course. So, if we can bridge that gap and bring those people towards that sort of performance model or towards that group model, great. And if we're able to do that with a small group of people here and it works, wonderful. But if people need to then transition to something else, we can help work with that or set that as a goal and make those introductions to help progress people into those types of programs. So, and I'll ask another question. So aside from, I sort of highlighted, obesity, and we talked about like sleep issues. What are some of the other sort of issues that kind of crop up? What are some other goals that people typically have? And people, can comment in the chat if it's easier, but what are some other goals that some of you folks sort of have for your children?
I'll pop in while everybody's typing. But I think like regulation is a big one, like behavior regulation. And I'll just even give you an example of, so my daughter who lives in a group home, so I see her on Sundays. And a lot of times when I go and pick her up, she is rocking and rolling and ready for me to take her out. And, we kind of have a little calming down time, like on the way to whatever it is that we're going to do. But this past Sunday, one of the staff took her out and they walked 4 miles before I picked her up. And it was a much different girl, just very relaxed and, ready to take on what we're doing. We waited and went apple picking, waited in a big long line with no issues whatsoever. And, and I really think that had a lot to do with what happened before. And, and I have felt that over time that, when there is that, physicalness, that really helps a lot with the regulation.
Excellent.
I know another topic is a lot of children will be toe walkers. So that could be something that their families could be working on, as well as then, balance sort of transfers into because of the toe walking. So, but also what Penny said, the regulation is a very good one.
Yeah, and that's and certainly we work a lot with that. I've seen that, and being able to work with people on balance. And, and sometimes again, it's just having the objects around that seem interesting enough to then try. We have a real low foam balance beam, and we use for different things. And just the ability. I had someone in the other day, and I said, hey, walk on this, and we just, and this individual wasn't a toe walker, but again, but as soon as you said that, I was like, that's where I would go. Like, let's play on the balance beam, right? And because if we're walking on the balance beam on our toes, well, that's going to be a lot harder. So it sort of forces movement. We do this again with adults. I have people that come in all the time and say, I can't touch my toes. And I said, and they think that that's a flexibility issue. And most often it's not a flexibility issue, it's a mobility issue, meaning that, or it's what I call a motor control issue, meaning their brain is not allowing them to move in the pattern that they should be moving to touch their toes. Right? They think they can't touch their toes, they try and can't succeed, but it's because their brain won't let their hips go where they need to go in order to touch their toes. Right? So this is the same case, right? Is that their brain's not necessarily telling them that they should use their whole foot. So sometimes we have to trick them into it by putting them off balance, so that the only way to not fall is to put those feet down. And so, we have to make it fun enough or seemingly enjoyable enough that they want to even tempt to do that, so that I can trick them. So, but those are some ways around that. Right. Well, this is good. Aside from me choking to death, we made it through.
Good job.
I got through this one with minimum wear and tear. Hopefully, we've sort of educated people enough that not just about what we do here, but maybe if nothing else, I always sort of set out to just raise an awareness that there are things out there that can help, and for people struggling with finding programs for their children, or just where to start, what to do. It doesn't have to be here. I'm just here and have a message. But for what we're doing, I think that if you're not close enough to get here, search around and ask some questions. There are a lot of very good trainers out there. There are some facilities that, and this is sort of something else I came across just preparing for today, is that obviously, not everybody is as educated or has the background. And some people just, unfortunately, are not nice people, and don't relate well to people other than people just like them. So, but there are plenty out there. And if, we're not close enough, or, it doesn't work here, look around, or, I can perhaps even give a referral, to at least, good people in the area. Because there's no reason why people shouldn't have access to the facilities and the care that they need.
Excellent. Well, I think, unless there are any other questions, I think that's a great note to end on, because important message. So thank you very much. Appreciate all the information, and we will see you again tonight.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.